Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. In today's video, we'll take a look at the purple label line of Ralph Lauren, which is their highest end clothing line. Back in 2019, we already did a video about what to buy from Ralph Lauren, but it included all the sub-brands, whereas today, we'll just look at the cream of the crop. Frankly, few American brands carry such a cachet as Ralph Lauren. Many celebrities like Jay-Z or Tom Hiddleston have frequently worn their clothing, which is famed for this unique style and hailed as the pinnacle of quality and craftsmanship. That being said, the line is also no stranger to exorbitantly high price tags. I mean, why buy a suit if you can buy a hoodie for $900? Ouch. So when the price tag is high, you probably want to know if your money is well spent. Over the years, we had the chance to try many different items from Ralph Lauren Purple Label line, so we can give you a good insight into what we've learned. So the question is, if Ralph Lauren Purple Label is truly the epitome of style, quality, and craftsmanship, or if all that glitters is not gold. So before we look at specific clothing items, we must first understand how Purple Label came to be. The Purple Label line was created in 1994 with a goal to create items that were reminiscent of the old world European glamour world, paired with the look of the 1974 Great Gatsby movie, which Ralph Lauren helped design all the costumes for. The idea was to create a larger-than-life, yet still elegant, but also opulent line that stood at the top of the Ralph Lauren brand. So why call it Purple Label? If we go back in history, the color purple is often associated with royalty and wealth. It all dates back to Cyrus the Great, the founder and king of the first Persian Empire, who wore a purple tunic as his royal uniform. Today, goods from the Ralph Lauren Purple Label line seem to be almost exclusively made in Italy. Now compare this to the majority of all other Ralph Lauren items, which are predominantly made in lower-cost Asian countries. Ironically, the Purple Label line is heavily inspired by the English Savile Row style. In line with that, in the early days, a lot more items, including their tailored clothing, accessories, and shoes, used to be made in England. Purple Label also prides itself to using only the most luxurious materials. And on our journey to source products for Fort Belvedere, we often encountered that certain makers or providers of materials, weavers, and so forth also were providing goods to Ralph Lauren Purple Label. So we can vouch for the quality ingredients they use. Personally, I also really appreciate that they have a certain vision for their clothes. So in 2022, I was in Yorkshire, England, and I was talking to a fabric finisher. And yes, the finishing makes all the difference in the world. An unfinished cashmere fabric is rough versus a finished one can be luxuriously soft. So when I was there and I was looking at certain things, I liked something, and a person there said, that's the Ralph Lauren finish. If someone asks for that, we can make it immediately. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about because I have a suit at home with exactly that finish. And that's the one I'm wearing here today. Ralph Lauren Purple Label seems to be produced in partnership with high-end manufacturers in Italy these days. So they're all exclusive products, you can't find them otherwise, but they're good at sourcing, and it allows them to switch things around. For example, their shoes used to be all made in England with different vendors or manufacturers, and now they just switch it to Italy, but all the shoes are marketed and labeled as Ralph Lauren Purple Label. The suit I'm wearing today was made in England, more specifically in Crewe at the old Chesterbury factory. Ralph Lauren moved on to St. Andrews in Italy, and eventually Chesterbury became defunct. Because Ralph Lauren is a strong brand, they cannot just command higher prices for their more middle-of-the-road Polo brand, but also for their higher-end Purple Label line. If you ask yourself why, I think it pays to take a look at the ethos of Ralph Lauren and the Purple Label line. When looking at the brand, it seems very obvious to me that Ralph Lauren is never trying to sell clothing, but in fact a all-encompassing lifestyle. So when they design things for a collection or a season, It's not just the clothes, it's also the environment and the accessories, the look, the cars, and everything that comes together. Of course, the marketing is aligned with that vision, and so typically Ralph Lauren ads feature just a brand name and a beautiful picture, nothing else. Ralph Lauren Purple Label is also heavily inspired by English tailoring that is soft and not structured, similarly to what you'd get from maybe Anderson and Shepherd. At the same time, it's an American take on Savile Row, so it's a bit more flamboyant, a bit louder, a bit more opulent. Often it's marketed in a somewhat whimsical or exaggerated way of preppy style. It definitely always carries elements of old money aesthetics. That means you see beautiful vintage cars, maybe from Ralph Lauren's personal car collection, tennis sweaters, Winchester shirts, boutonnieres, three-piece suits, pocket watches, but also more contemporary items, such as leather jackets or bold prints. While originally Purple Label was conceptualized as this higher-end, traditional, formal clothing, in recent years we've definitely seen a shift towards more innovative, new takes on classic clothing. For example, you've seen the famous Polo Bear appear in many more things, whether it's the watch or a hoodie or other elements. That again is more whimsical and a bit tongue-in-cheek. Sometimes they also pair trendier things with more classic things, such as a hoodie with a double-breasted jacket, or maybe a quilted puffer vest with an otherwise more classic outfit. Of course, Ralph Lauren often likes to be bold and colorful, so that's also represented in some items of the Purple Label line. I remember a few years back that this really bold dinner jacket with a fabric that not many people would be comfortable wearing, but I thought it was awesome. So now the big question is, what should you buy from Ralph Lauren Purple Label? Let's start with a suit and jackets and a more formal end of things. Looking at their silhouette, you can definitely see the inspiration from the 1930s. Often their jackets have a somewhat lower buttoning point and wider lapels. That was definitely the case when they made their stuff in England. I also really appreciate their soft approach to tailoring because it makes it more comfortable to wear, but it still looks stellar. Looking at the Italian garments, I can see the lapels have gotten a little slimmer and the buttoning point has sometimes come up a little bit, but they still have interesting details, such as a pleated back, for example. The jackets are fully canvassed with a light, malleable canvas that provides supreme comfort while still looking well dressed. No, you don't get all the wrinkles from like unlined jackets, but you don't feel constricted like in a proper English military uniform. Their pants often also come with pleats, which give you a bit more room and have that classic 1930s aesthetic. The rise of the pants is somewhat higher than what you would get from most brands these days, although they're not super high. In terms of retail cost, you're looking at $4,000 to $5,000 for a suit, sometimes more depending on the fabric. Obviously, the advantage is what you see is what you get. You can try it on, see how it fits, and if you go to, for example, the Ralph Lauren Rhinelander mansion, they'll take care of the alterations and you get to soak in the entire experience. Honestly, it's a beautiful store, and if you're a menswear enthusiast, I'd put it on my bucket list. By the way, you can check out our video on a gentleman's bucket list here. I think generally their offering shines in the sense that they offer unusual fabric designs and nice finishes that you can't find off the rack elsewhere. If you go bespoke, I'm sure you could find something comparable. You'd probably get a better fit and you get more handwork. After all, Purple Label line suits are not made by an individual tailor, they're still factory products. So would I personally shell out the retail price for Purple Label suits and jackets? No, I wouldn't. Now that being said, if you can find them marked down during their sales season, and Ralph Lauren often has heavy markdowns, or maybe you find them at an outlet, or on eBay or secondhand, they can be a great buy because you get excellent styling, the quality and the workmanship is good, and now the price is more affordable. In terms of outerwear, 20 years ago, Purple Label was pretty much the only ready-to-wear line that had proper, classically inspired men's overcoats. These days you have other options, but still, Purple Label overcoats are excellent, and if you can get their hand on them at a reasonable price, I think they're fantastic. They have things like a polo coat, but also an overcoat in a classic Prince of Wales check. Again, it's all inspired by the 1930s and the golden age of menswear, when men had overcoats with character and not just black, charcoal, navy, and gray solids. Even though one could describe the cuts as classic, I can definitely see the Italian influence, where it always provides a more tailored, sleek look. It's not boxy by any means. Now they also offer trendier jackets that are shorter and more casual, or puffer vests. I would always stay clear from those because they're way overpriced. Would I buy a new overcoat off the rack from them? No, I wouldn't, because I know I can make it made to measure for much less. But again, if you can find it at a good deal, it's definitely worth it. Love this styling. Now, in my opinion, the thing the Purple Label line does best for a ready-to-wear brand is their formal evening wear. A few years back, I was able to score a peak lapel, double-breasted, 6'2" dinner jacket from Ralph Lauren Purple Label that has a cream cloth with white silk satin-faced lapels. That slight contrast makes it different and pop from other off-white dinner jackets, and I really like it. If you go to their website, they also have brown velvet dinner jackets and lots of other offerings. And every season they come up with different things. Oftentimes you can find the old ones on eBay still or in outlets. Most other creative black tie stuff off the rack usually comes in a cheaper, inferior material, whereas Ralph Lauren Purple Label maintains their high standards even for these items that you don't wear every day. Sometimes they also have really nice tartan and plaid dinner jackets, which are personally quite dear to my heart. Ralph Lauren Purple Label even offers white tie ensembles that cost well north of $10,000. If you go to the lengths of wearing white tie, you probably want to have it tailor-made or at least made to measure, so it's not ideal to get it off the rack, but I'm sure some people need a tailcoat last minute, and Ralph Lauren is definitely a great option for that. Of course, you also pay for that. Would I personally spend $10,000 on a white tie ensemble from Ralph Lauren? Absolutely not. Frankly, it speaks for them, though, that they offer it as a ready-to-wear option. Now, if you're looking for sweaters and cardigans, Purple Label has quite a large range. Crew necks, quarter zips, turtlenecks, cardigans, you name it, they have it. I once bought a very finely knit sweater from them because I thought it was an interesting concept to wear something maybe in a transitional season. Turns out, if you wear a shirt underneath of it, the pattern would show through, so I hardly ever wore it. They also sometimes offer cashmere sweaters, and I've even seen hand-knit sweaters, but typically they set you back between $700 and $1,500. Now that may be less expensive than Loro Piana, and you can see if that brand is worth it in this video. It is still pricey. So at the end of the day, I love the sweater design. I think they're a bit too pricey, so if you find them on sale, great buy. Next up are shoes, and I think that used to be an area of particular strength for Ralph Lauren. Today, I find them not as compelling anymore. In the past, Ralph Lauren Purple Label partnered with reputable English shoemakers, including Crockett & Jones, Edward Green, and Gaziano Girling. No, they didn't just take a style off the rack, but they designed something that was in line with their vision for that season. For example, they offered a great range of spectator shoes, which is not something you typically find ready to wear. I'm wearing a pair today, and you can check out the details in the outfit rundown at the end of the video. Of course, if you compared the prices of the other brands to Ralph Lauren Purple Label directly, Ralph Lauren Purple Label is more expensive because they have stores and they have a stronger brand, so they can just command more money. If you find a Ralph Lauren Purple Label made in England pair of shoes today, it is a good buy because you can no longer buy them new because the new ones are all made in Italy, which means the old or dead stock items are all at a reduced price, and if you find them, you can safely buy them. The more modern Italian shoes are not so much to my liking. I think the lasts are less refined. The leather may be nice, the construction is softer, but I'd much prefer the English shoes over the Italian ones. So what should be things that you should be more cautious about Ralph Lauren Purple Label? And one of the things I think is swimwear. In general, Ralph Lauren does a great job on swimwear. Their polo lines also accommodate different cuts and people with bigger thighs. Now, the Purple Label swimwear just comes in one style and it's a bit slimmer. So if you have bigger thighs, it's not for you. I mean, we all know how quickly swimwear fashion can go wrong, but Ralph Lauren Purple Label is typically not that extreme. Personally, I don't see the purpose of spending $500 on a Purple Label pair of swim trunks if I can get the same material and construction at the lower polo line. So I'd rather go with that. If we look at pants, their made in Italy styles are definitely trimmer, so if that's something that works for you, it might be something that you like. They also offer denim, pretty much all of which are in a slim cut. So frankly, I was never able to try them on myself. I'd guess that if you're willing to spend $500 on a pair of jeans, you're probably better off with some Japanese heritage brands. I mean, Purple Label doesn't even have a salvage option, which most denim connoisseurs at least appreciate. Why? Well, the high-end sledge denim fades better and ages more gracefully, versus the non-salvage denim just doesn't. When it comes to traditional neckwear, it pays to keep in mind that Ralph Lauren originally started as a tie company. Today their ties retail for $230 and more, and they come in two camps. The one style is the more classic style with colors and patterns that you can wear with a traditional gentleman's outfit. Then they have the really bold ties that really stand out from the crowd, in a way that makes them really hard to combine. I've been to weavers and seen fabrics woven for Ralph Lauren Purple Label, and they're all good quality materials. That being said, you can get a comparable tie for a much lower cost, so I personally would go with that. There's nothing inherently unique about their construction or their materials that you couldn't find elsewhere. That being said, if you find a markdown and you like the style, go for it. It's not a bad quality. Now, when it comes to knit ties, Ralph Lauren Purple Label ones are made in Italy that are round knit, versus the ones at Fort Belvedere are flat knit, more crunchy, and in my mind superior. And you can get two Fort Belvedere ties for the price of one Ralph Lauren Purple Label tie. Now, what about polo shirts? Obviously, the Polo Ralph Lauren polo shirt is probably the most famous clothing item the brand has today. So what did they change for the Purple Label line polo shirts? Again, they're made in Italy, they use nicer materials, they have things like mother of pearl buttons. The other thing that distinguishes them are their oversized logos. Yes, you can find a polo bear on there, and you can also find a polo player horse, but it's a bit more elaborately embroidered than on the polo line. The fabrics are still all cotton piqué, and while of a high quality, I'd say overall it doesn't warrant double the price. If you're interested in what polo shirts are worth their money, we got you covered. When it comes to shirts, the Purple Label line definitely has a unique edge. I remember in the early days, I was in love with their Keaton collar, which was this extremely widespread cutaway collar. Today, lots of other brands offer it, but at the time, it was something that you could only find from Ralph Lauren Purple Label off the rack. Also, they have a range of bold dress shirts that are not just plain white or simple stripes, but they have unusual color combinations, which I really appreciate. For a ready-to-wear brand, they also have a really nice selection of evening shirts, which is unrivaled, except maybe by the brand Eton. In recent years, they also offered more casual shirts to the lineup, and they also have more plain business shirts. The big issue with their shirts is that they don't come in different sleeve lengths. So I have long arms, for example, and their shirts do not work for me. For example, on a size 16-inch neck, you only get about 34.5 to 35 inches in the sleeve. Not enough for me. So unless you find a fabric from them that you're really in love with and you can't find elsewhere, I would say don't go with Ralph Lauren dress shirts. Unless, of course, you find them on sale. Keep in mind, it's not bad quality, it's just marked up a lot. So when you find them on sale, you can buy them with confidence. Also keep in mind that for $500, you can find a fantastic bespoke shirt or made-to-measure shirt that will likely make you just as happy or happier. Ralph Lauren Purple Label also offers a range of leather goods, and they're typically quite high-end. I've been to the factory where all their hardware is made, and it is a top-notch manufacturer for that. Also, you can see things like alligator leathers, which of course come with astronomical retail price tags. They also have less expensive items, but typically they come with big, bold monograms. Many of their smaller leather goods also come with large RL logos all over their leather goods, which I'm personally not a huge fan of. While the leathers used are good, I think the combination with a large logo and a high price tag make them not worth it in my mind. When it comes to ancillary accessories, such as pocket squares, Ralph Lauren Purple Label does offer them, but they typically come in very solid, uninspiring designs and just carry a much higher price tag. So I think you're better off looking at other brands for silk or silk blends, because there's not so much workmanship in a pocket square except the hand-rolled edges. And at Fort Belvedere, for example, we add the double hand-rolled edges with an X stitch. So you get a lot more craftsmanship, you get better materials that are sized exactly in the proper size for your pocket. I think the Ralph Lauren pocket squares are typically all more one size fits it all, and it's not something they pay particular attention to. It's just something they add to round out the look, but at the retail price, I think it's not worth it. The extra you pay there doesn't get you a better fabric or anything better. In fact, you get less craftsmanship and less thought through design for more money. So in a nutshell, if I look at Ralph Lauren Purple Label as a whole, I have to tip my hat. What I've accomplished is really remarkable. Ralph Lauren is a billion-dollar company, and they're still putting out something that is inspired by classic style, that is innovative in its design and has a clear vision. And for that, I'm really grateful. Yes, their retail pricing is high, but so is the retail pricing of other luxury brands, and I feel with Ralph Lauren, you get a really, really cool style. Plus, you can often find them on sale and even more marked down than other luxury brands, so I think it is a good buy. Yes, personally, I wouldn't buy pretty much anything at full price, but we as a team believe that this brand really shines if you can get it from an outlet or marked down or secondhand. For example, the suit I'm wearing today, I bought probably in 2005 for a few £100, which was probably a few $100 at the time, less than 500 probably, and I can still wear it today. Yes, I know I should work out a little more and lose some weight, but overall, still good for something that I bought that long ago. So what's your opinion about Ralph Lauren Purple Label? What would you buy from them? What would you rather not buy? Today's outfit is of course based around Ralph Lauren Purple Label. I have this beautiful suit that again was made in England. It is made of 98% wool, 2% cashmere in the Ralph Lauren finish. Very 1930s inspired, and I can wear it as a 6'2", which makes the lapel a little slimmer, but today I'm wearing it as a 6'1", with those wide lapels and more shirt front showing through. As I mentioned, I can't wear their shirts because the sleeves are too short, but this is a made-to-measure shirt that has likewise slim mother of pearl buttons like their shirts and a spread collar inspired by their Keaton collar. The tie is a white rib grosgrain brown silk tie that is also from Ralph Lauren Purple Label. It complements the brown in my boutonniere, which is from Fort Belvedere, just like my white linen pocket square. You can find that in the shop, just like my two-tone solid navy socks that harmonize really well with my suit and transition neatly over into a pair of Ralph Lauren Purple Label made in England shoes, which were made by Edward Green. They're a brown penny loafer with wide suede. Yes, they're not easy to keep clean, but they're super, super stylish, and I love wearing them. Of course, with this kind of an outfit, I could also wear a nice fedora hat, even a brown one, for example, or a navy blue one. My cufflinks are the silver monkey fist knots from Fort Belvedere, and I'm pairing them with a white gold ring with an opal that has a doublet, which is black and makes it look different. Now, Ralph Lauren Purple Label also does have cologne, which I've never tried, but just looking at their scent, the packaging would have worked perfectly well with my suit today. Well, if you look really close, my fabric is a rope stripe, that packaging is a pinstripe. And if you don't know the difference, we got a video for you. So instead, I chose the fragrance Polo Green, so we stay in a Ralph Lauren family.